What's going on, guys? Zach Evanish here with the Strong Life Podcast, and I'm going to double this episode as the New Jersey High School Strength Coach Podcast. And I want to comment on the recent media that came about from a Texas high school football coach who had his athletes do 300 to 400 push-ups in an hour, and they were hospitalized. So I'm going to do a little bit of a screen share, and we're going to prop up the microphone, get a little better sound quality. So stand by for 1 second. Here we go. And so something I've been saying for a long time, for over 10 years, longer, early 2000s, as I did a lot of outreach to sport coaches before the high school strength and conditioning scene was really getting popularized. So I'm also the state director for the NHS SCA, which is the National High School Strength Coaches Association. And my job through the NHS SCA is to educate, empower, and equip any coach running the weight room. So if it's a sport coach, if it's a phys ed teacher running the weight room, then my job is to help them, to educate them. That's the whole job of the NHS SCA. And the high school strength and conditioning field, the full-time careers have really grown exponentially. I believe 2 years ago, Gary Schofield said something to the effect of a 700% increase of high school strength coaches within the past 4 years. And I think that was 2 years ago. And there are a lot of highly qualified high school strength coaches. It's a very impressive field. And I've been at the Division I sector. I've coached at Lehigh. I've coached at Rutgers. And I started coaching in 1995. So I've been around quite a bit. So let's take a look at some of the reactions and as much of the story as I can pick up from the media. So we're going to do a screen share. So if you're listening, you'll be able to see only through YouTube. And if you are watching, let's shut this down on YouTube, you'll be able to see this. So headline here from insider.com. A Texas high school football coach is on leave after parents said multiple students were hospitalized from being forced to do nearly 400 push-ups in a 1-hour workout. So I want to give you some context to that. There's many ways to do 400 push-ups. We could do 10 push-ups on the minute for 40 minutes. We could do 8 push-ups on the minute for 60 minutes and have, 8 push-ups will take you about 10, 15 seconds and have 45 seconds rest. But I'm sure this training was beyond just the push-ups. And let's see if we get some details here. John Harrell, the head football coach and campus athletic director at Rockwell Heath High School in Rockwell. So he's not just a football coach. He's an athletic coordinator. So it sounds like he may not be the athletic director, but he coordinates all the athletic events. And Texas high school football is massive. And from what I've picked up on through the many years of doing this, the strength and conditioning culture has been quite ahead of the curve in places like Texas, North and South Carolina, Georgia, places that seem to have been having full-time high school strength coaches who are not only qualified, but also educated. So they have some sort of a certification, a quality certification, and they're highly qualified. They're experienced. But sometimes coaches make very poor judgment. Excuse me. So parents spoke to the newspaper. They were anonymous, fear of retaliation. And they said that it was 300 to 400 push-ups. They got hospitalized with rhabdo. And I want to say, I never heard of rhabdo until CrossFit came about. And maybe it happened before that, but when I was in high school, I've gone through workouts of, I was a wrestler. So doing hundreds of push-ups, burpees, sprints, things like that was completely normal. We had practices for 2.5 hours, sometimes 3 hours with no water breaks. That was completely normal. And I was fine. And I was a fit kid, not a very strong kid. Now, they're going to do further investigations. I don't know any of the other details, but a couple things going on here. and there's more news here that I'll read from a different website. A couple things going on here. Number one, they had just came back from winter break, from what I understand. So coming back from winter break, not every kid is in training. They may have ate a lot of crappy food. They may have taken 2 or 3 weeks off, however long this winter break was. So they were in a detrained mode. Football ends around Thanksgiving, possibly the first week of December, if these football players make it deep into the playoffs. So after that time period, they're certainly not at their fittest. What should happen for 6 to 8 weeks after a season is a moderate intensity rebuilding period. In fact, for high school athletes, some very basic bodybuilding training. There should really be minimal high intensity conditioning. It should be more like steady state aerobic work, like some basic sled drags. And the intensity really shouldn't be picking up right out of the gate. In fact, the first 2 to 3 weeks, I don't even go with squatting or deadlifting after football season, because not only am I giving them a physical break, they're coming off a football season, which is like going through a car wreck every day. I'm giving them an emotional break where they don't need to get psyched up to do something heavy or something intense. I'm rebuilding, and you cannot go intense all the time, right? You can train hard or you could train long, but you cannot do both. And so as a coach, you need to understand the psychological aspect behind training athletes. Now, this news clipping on the Dallas Morning News, the school district addressed everything immediately. The football coach on the Monday after the workout did like a light stretch. Here you go. You could see it right here. Student athletes attending class. So maybe this is a strength and conditioning class during the day. Participated in a recovery workout with a light warm up and light stretching that was non-strenuous. I'm not sure what that would be, but then they go back to talk about an instance at University of Iowa football, which also happened right when the football players returned from break. 13 of those athletes were hospitalized, extreme soreness and discolored urine. There's a lot of things going on here. Number one, after a break, kids are not showing up at their best. You have a very small percent of athletes who take their vacation time or their break as an opportunity to eat healthy, to go to a private strength and conditioning coach, and to rebuild immediately. Most athletes take time off, and we're in a very strange place, in my opinion, where kids are joining sport teams that are combative in nature: lacrosse, football, wrestling, and many of them cannot even do one proper push-up. And so who can do 300 to 400 push-ups in a workout? The majority of high school kids cannot. In fact, many high school kids cannot do 20 proper push-ups. So if I have an hour with athletes, I'm not going to get a lot of sport performance carryover with 300 to 400 push-ups. And even at the Division I level of wrestling, I would not do something like this. If I have an hour of training with them, I can get more results by having a properly planned programming. Now, let's say my buddy Jim Wendler, he was doing a high volume of calisthenics on the regular as an adult who's trained up, who's trained for decades, and is mentally prepared for this. Then it might make sense. It might make sense for a high-level CrossFit athlete. This would make sense for a young man who's preparing for Special Forces selection, and he knows that he has to become great at push-ups, pull-ups, dips, all kinds of leg raises and flutter kicks, has to become great at running and swimming, because that's what selection is for. High school athletes, we have to remember, the majority of them are not, I think it's 6 or 7% are going to compete in college, and 1 or 2% are going to be ready for Division I or competing in Division I athletics. So did this coach make a good decision with 300 to 400 push-ups? The simple answer is no, absolutely not. Let's say I'm training a team when they get back from break. a football team. It's the middle of January. We're going to do a warm-up. We're going to do squats, lunges, and push-ups for 2 to 3 sets of 10 reps. Believe it or not, there's quite a lot of athletes who can't do 10 push-ups, especially your heavier athletes, your linemen, your skill guys who are lighter tend to have a better relative body strength ratio. And I'm also keeping in mind, as I said before, they're coming off of a break. So I'm going to do moderate weight, moderate reps, more pump up work. And I'm going to allow them to maybe talk in between sets and be a little bit more chill. Those first 2 weeks are really important, that you don't crush their confidence by bringing them back and going crazy right away. A lot of these kind of weight room supervisors are doing these overly intense workouts, or they're testing kids on a 1-rep max. Why am I going to test somebody on a 1-rep max when they haven't been training emotionally? They're probably not ready to be thrown into the fire. And there is a high level of emotional readiness that is required for a 1-rep max or intense workouts. What would I do within that hour? We do those calisthenics as a warm-up. Then we'll do recline row, band pull-aparts, hanging abs for another 2 to 3 rounds. Then we're going to do dumbbell work, and we're going to rebuild the muscle that was lost during the season. And we might address injuries and imbalances. Not might, we definitely will. So when these athletes have gone through, figure training starts in early August, and then they have 3 months of the season, you're looking at 4 months of running 6 days a week because of the drills and the practice. You're looking at oftentimes meals being skipped, high levels of stress. And so this has been a major issue across the country, where people think anybody could run the weight room. And parents will say, oh, he lifts at school. Is the person running the weight room qualified and educated in understanding what an athlete needs physically, psychologically, emotionally, mentally in his or her physical preparation? In this case, we're talking about football players, so I'm going to say the boys. Same thing with coming back from a college break. That being said, the expectations of athletes in high school versus the expectations of the kids who came back from college break is much, much different. We're talking about the University of Iowa, a Big Ten school, one of the premier football programs in the country, kids who are on scholarship. They are essentially being paid to play football, right? They're going to school free or mostly free with a high scholarship. My expectation as a strength coach for those kids is that you have a 3 or 4 month winter break. You are doing something. You are in training, and guaranteed those kids are sent home with some form of a training regime to follow. So it is up to them. It is their responsibility to exhibit accountability and follow through on workouts, so that when they return, we're not starting from ground zero. But a big but, okay? I am knowing that kids being kids, they will not all follow through. In fact, even in the NFL, when these guys have an off season, they are not all training. Some of them take 6 months off and do zero sports performance work. They do zero strength training. They wait all the way up until they get back to the stadium to be working with their strength coach. And so even if I'm at Iowa or Rutgers or Michigan or another Big Ten school or a small D1 AA school, you name it, or Ivy League school, whatever it is, I'm going to be playing the devil's advocate and assuming that not everybody's ready. And I'm going to take them through a warm-up to see where we're at. What kind of energy levels are we exhibiting? And coming back from break, I don't need to hit athletes in the balls with a sledgehammer. That's the bottom line truth. Now, I don't know what the workout was at Iowa. If I recall the rumors, it was something like 10 sets of 10 squats at body weight, followed by, 5 or 10 sets of prowler pushing. And I'm going to tell you something. Wrestlers, that could be another day at the office for us. So you have to know who you're working with. I'm training with high school athletes day in and day out, about 150 kids out of my school every day. Then, of course, we have the underground strength gym. The kids at the high school who train there are different than the kids who come to my private facility whose parents are paying for them to be there. Not all of them, but most of the time I just have a different level of motivation than the majority of kids at the high school. Do I have kids at my high school who could do 300 to 400 push-ups in an hour? Absolutely. But again, you have to understand, like, does this training have a transfer to sport? Is it going to have a carryover? Is it safe? And here's the ultimate question, whether you have kids or not. Would I do this with my own son? That's a question that coaches should start asking. And years ago at one of my private facilities, one of my coaches we had a meeting, and he's telling me he wants the kids to have be a little more self-sufficient, do this, do that. And I said, no. They're paying us to coach them. I'm paying you to coach them. I don't need them to be self-sufficient when they're here. When they're home, yes, I need mom and dad and parents stocking the fridge, stocking the cabinets with healthy food. I need the athlete, him or her, to go to sleep at the proper time and to control the controllables. But when they're training with us, they're under our control. So I said to him, make pretend you're outside looking in through a window and you're watching somebody coach your own child, son or daughter. He didn't have kids. So I said, think to the future. What kind of energy do you want from the coach? Do you want the coach coaching, or do you want the coach checking their phone? Do you want the coach to expect you to be self-sufficient, or is this coach being paid to coach? What do you want the coach to talk to the kids about? Just sets and reps, just exercises, or checking in on life and how things are going outside of athletics? And it changed his frame of reference. It changed the way he was kind of perceiving the whole strength coach thing. And that could be a great question for coaches to ask. Would you do this with your own son? My son would not do 300 push-ups in an hour, 400 push-ups in an hour, unless he said to me, Dad, I heard of this challenge. I want to do this. I'd say, okay, let's just do 10 push-ups every minute for the next hour. And we could do it. My son could do it. And I'll tell you why. For the past few years, every day I see him doing push-ups. He does them in his room. He'll do it in the kitchen when the water is being filled up from the refrigerator. He's capable of it. We need to understand the majority of kids are not capable of this. And sport coaches or anybody running the weight room needs to understand this. And so when strength and conditioning is done to the extreme in the wrong way, we don't just get kids with rhabdo. We get athletes dying. And I'm always shocked at how many schools continue to use we don't have the budget to hire an educated and qualified strength coach. Not only that, the administration does not even know what questions to ask during the interview process for a strength coach to get the feel that this person is educated and qualified to train hundreds of kids day in and day out. And this is why I love being part of the NHS SCA, because we are a professional organization. We're constantly bettering ourselves. In our private Facebook group, I always tell other coaches, if you ask one question, hey, I'm training baseball players in season, how many of you are doing this with them? By the end of the day, there's going to be 30 answers from coaches that are boots on the ground, working with athletes, giving you feedback without the ego, without bashing each other. It's not like being on Instagram and all this crap. It's about people who legitimately care about the kids. This 300 to 400 push-ups a day, I could do it at age 47 in an hour. It was done in the 80s and the 90s, and we're not in the 90s anymore. This is not what kids are capable of anymore. Kids are not showing up in high school athletics able to do a push-up. Now think about it. In football, lacrosse, soccer, if I fall on the ground, or basketball, how do I get up? I do a push-up. And this is why we see kids breaking their arms when they fall, because their bones, their tendons, their ligaments, tearing muscles, they're not physically prepared. And the adults who keep creating all these sport clubs and all these quote unquote specialty programs, we're actually not getting these kids better. Physical education is constantly being like chipped away at, right? Oh, don't do tumbling with the kids. It's going to hurt their neck. Then you pull that out. Don't play dodgeball. Somebody's going to get hit by a ball. All these things actually build athleticism. In physical education, when you do kind of basic gymnastic movements, bear crawls, crab walks, you play dodgeball and tag games where there are people who get tagged and sometimes you fall down, but you learn to get up. These are all crucial aspects. But instead, what we have are arm care programs for baseball players. What about the rest of the body? We have speed and agility programs, but we have athletes who can't do push-ups or a pull-up. So all they could do is run around cones and move their feet very quickly. We need sport performance programs that build the total athlete. That's what I do at the Underground Strength Gym. That's what I do at Middletown High School South. And that's what I will do everywhere, even when I'm at a Division I level. When I trained those guys at the Division I level, you've got guys that are the best of the best in the country. And if I have them do 400 push-ups, it does nothing. Okay. That's something to prepare somebody for police academy or special forces selection. It's not something that high school athletes need to do. And so, we have other stories here from Oregon, which 2017, I think I remember hearing about this. He required some players to do push-ups, squats, sit-ups, and a plank for up to an hour. So they did a calisthenics circuit for an hour. There's a CrossFit workout called Cindy that you do 5 pull-ups, 5 pull-ups, 10 push-ups, 15 squats, and you do it for 20 minutes. You do it for 30 minutes. You could do it for an hour. There's the CrossFit workout Murph, where you run a mile in the beginning and again at the end after you do your 300 squats, 200 push-ups, 100 pull-ups with a 40-pound weight vest. I've done that workout before, but I was trained up for it. That is not a workout that's going to help with sports performance. And so schools and administration need to do a better job of screening who is running the weight room. That is the bottom line. We have to stop letting people run the weight room who I've been lifting for 30 years. That means nothing. You need to understand not only the physiology of what athletes need, you also need to understand the psychology of what athletes are prepared for and how to take them through something. For example, I just trained the football team at my high school. We'd go Monday through Thursday. The juniors are capable of more than the majority of sophomores. The sophomores are capable of more than the majority of freshmen. Not always. There's a couple of freshmen who've been trained up through their middle school years because they went to a private coach. They've just put in the work, so they are physically prepared. And we need intelligence, we need education, and we need the right qualifications. And I really think that if you are a school administrator and you're going to do an interview for a high school strength coach, you need to consult with somebody from the NHS SCA and help you come up with some sort of guidelines of who should get the job. And I will also say this, it's not just an interview. I would want to see the person coach. I would want to see them coach a group with multiple athletes, male, female, multiple levels, maybe even somebody with an injury, to see if they understand how to utilize progressions and regressions, how to work around somebody with an injury, and maybe to see them do a quick evaluation. Where does the evaluation happen? As soon as the athletes walk through the door. You're evaluating their mood. You could kind of look at their facial expressions. Then take them through body weight exercises as a warm-up. Can these kids squat? What do their push-ups look like? Can they even do one pull-up? All of these things is like this ongoing evaluation that should never end. And experiences and stories like this, tell us even more. Parents, you are doing a disservice to your kid if your son or daughter is not involved with a experienced and qualified strength coach to prepare them for sports, because there's no reason why freshmen are thrown into a weight room with seniors and expected to do the same exercises. But guess what? That happens all the time. Freshmen who can't do a bodyweight squat are thrown into a weight room and they're doing power cleans. And let me tell you something, that is the last thing they should be doing when they cannot move their own body. So I hope that this coach finds a way to get back into coaching after he has been educated in strength and conditioning. But looks like the best thing they could do at this school district in Texas is they need to hire a qualified sports performance coach. That's the bottom line. Because at the end of the day, if education is really quote unquote all about the kids, then we need to stop saying we don't have the budget. Find the budget. The money's there. If the money's not there, the booster club can hire somebody. And coaches are not going to do this for free. We don't have all these other people doing stuff for free, but parents and people in general consistently expect coaches to do stuff for free. How high quality of a coach are you going to get who's volunteering his time? Schools need to do better. That's really the bottom line. So let me stop. How do I stop the share here? And that's it, team. So this is Zach Even-Esh, Strong Life Podcast, and the New Jersey High School Strength Coach Podcast. Normally I do this with my buddy Paul Collodi. It's Sunday, 3:15 p.m. I didn't want to destroy the middle of his day with family, but this is where we stand with the NHSSCA is we stand for excellence for the kids, and we demand excellence of ourselves as coaches. And 400 push-ups in a workout is not going to make somebody a better football player. And there's other ways to do it, smarter, more intelligent. And so schools need to do a greater job of getting the right people through the doors. That's it, guys. Appreciate everybody listening. Please leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Share this with friends, colleagues, and you could also share it on your social media by taking a screenshot. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, like, and comment. That's it, guys. Have a great day, and I'll talk to everybody soon. I'm out of here.